I'd like to start by letting you guys know that my journey with high cholesterol started when I was 8 years old. There was a group that came to my elementary school and they did cholesterol screenings. And I remember being told that my cholesterol was high. And the other thing that I remember from so long ago was that I could have a heart attack when I was 30. So those were the two things that I took away from that screening. And at that time, I thought that a heart attack meant that I was going to die. So for a good amount of my life, I thought that I was going to die at 30 years old. So after the screening and I found out that I had high cholesterol, I would go on Saturdays to the Children's Hospital here in New Orleans, and they would ask me questions about my diet. And I remember at the last meeting that I had, it was determined that my diet was not the cause of my high cholesterol and that it was because of genetics. So I was like, okay, great. What now? Right. So as time went on, I learned of family members who had heart disease and who had passed. My father's dad died at 59. He had heart disease. My mother's dad had a heart attack at 59. And then my father, he suffered a heart attack, received a stent at 51. So that made a big impact on my life. And I decided that I wanted to become a cardiac nurse because I always wanted to be knowledgeable of the treatments and drugs that would be available to me because I figured that it was a pretty high chance that I would be a cardiac patient one day. So then from there, I talked to my PCP at the time and inquired about medications. And she told me that they were not prescribing medications for people until they reached 30. So that was a bit of a blow because I was afraid. I said, I want to get, I want to get treatment. I want to get these numbers down. Then she ended up starting me on a statin, but then I started having kids. So I was on and off medication during that time period. When I had my last son, I was 29 years old. And when I was done breastfeeding, I was ready to go. I said, I'm gonna get on a statin, I'm gonna stay on a statin the rest of my life, get my numbers down, decrease my risk of having a heart attack. I go to the PCP I was seeing at that time, and he told me that he wasn't going to put me on a statin because the only risk factors that I had was high cholesterol and family history. And he said I didn't have high blood pressure, I wasn't overweight, I didn't smoke, so he didn't want to put me on anything. So I was really disappointed when I got that news because I knew my family history and I knew I needed to be treated. And I wanted to be proactive in preventing a cardiac event. So I then decided to see the cardiologist that my dad was seeing at that time, which happened to be a physician that I had worked with for 10 years. And I referred my dad and my dad's brother to him. So he was very familiar with the family history. And I felt that I had a really good chance of him understanding the treatment that I was seeking. So when I saw him, he told me, he said, Chloe, I know what's going to happen if we don't do anything. He said, I know your dad, your uncle, who both ended up with bypass surgery. And he said, I'm going to be aggressive with you. And I told him, I said, that's totally fine. So went through 3 statins. I'm on my third one now that I can finally tolerate. It's not one of the stronger ones, but at least it's something. Numbers still weren't where he wanted them to be. And so he then added ezetimibe, and we got some better results with that. Um, but as time passed, even more family members suffered heart attacks. I had a first cousin, which was my dad's brother, the one I mentioned, that had bypass surgery. His son at 39 received a stent to his LED after suffering an MI. And then his sister, a month later, had an out of hospital arrest and died a couple days after she arrested. And she did have severe PAD. I don't know the all the details, but I do know that she did have PAD pretty badly. And I do have a nephew who, at 4 years old, had an LDL level of over 300. And he has since started on atorvastatin, and he's been on that for a couple years now. So it's been quite a journey for me, getting the news at 8 and thinking I was going to die at 30. And then not really given, I wasn't given much information past that, like what's next, what do I do? And I spoke with my father about it, and he didn't recall getting any information either. It was kind of like we were just hanging out there, with this information. So I really am thankful for the FH Foundation and the work that you guys are doing, because it's really important to get the information out and let people know that screening is important, treatments available, genetic testing, things like that. So I think that what's been highlighted in the other talks is key, because we have to reach all populations, and women, Blacks, Asians, everybody should have the same access to healthcare. So that's pretty much my story and my journey with cholesterol and FH in my family.
Thank you so much. That's such a powerful story. And before we bring all the other panelists in, we'll ask you to, show. I think we'll ask you to show your videos and unmute yourselves. But Chloe, I wanted to ask you right while we have you on. That's an extremely powerful story. We hear so often of missed opportunities, lost opportunities to prevent, deleterious outcomes. And you talk about engagement. You're bought in. You're a nurse. You're able to communicate it. You're embedded in a community that is at high risk. Was there any reluctance within your family or the patients that you see to be treated for this? And if there is reluctance, what strategies have you used to overcome that?
Not so much in my family, and I think it's because of the great loss that we've suffered over the years, with first losing my grandfather so early. So my family, they know that we have to do something about it. But as for patients, yes, it can be quite disappointing for me, because I do come across a good number of patients, particularly younger people, that don't want any treatment. They want to try exercise, they want to try um, diet, and which is good. Um, but the approach that I usually try is I let them do that, and even with having the family history, and I know, I tell them, let's try diet, let's try exercise. I go into detail with them, and I say, we let's test again, okay? And they're like, okay, yeah, let's test again. And then that way, they've bought into the process. They know that they have the power to first try what they want. We do that, and we come back with numbers after they've tried diet and exercise. Some of them say, okay, yeah, I see that, I need to do it. So I think it's just really important to meet people where they are, give them the information, meet them where they are, and then
Yeah.
keep going from there and trying.